I believe in this sort of collaborative way of how do we get the most out of people? We get it by asking them for their input. We get it by asking them to be partners.
You're listening to Working Forward, a future of work focused podcast from People Forward Network. These episodes pave the road ahead, helping us confidently step into the future as a leader who moves people forward. Let's go.
I'm Laurie Shakur, and this is Putting the Human Back in Human Resources. We're diving deep into the world of HR and leadership, exploring pivotal elements that shape workplace dynamics while unraveling the impact of positive leadership and sharing the significance of creating healthy workplaces where people can truly thrive. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Story time. When I was growing up, there weren't many spaces that I found safe. Sure, my home was safe and school to a certain degree, but there were no extracurricular activities. There was no Boys and Girls Club. There was no community place where I could find a safe haven. And there certainly wasn't a place where I could explore my creative side. Today's guest, Nina Woodruff, is the CEO of MoCA, the Museum of Children's Arts. Nina's an East Oakland native, and she became an Oakland kid back in 1989. She was connected with the program through the East Oakland Youth Development Center. In Oakland, like so many other cities at that time, schools were removing art programming from the curriculum. And that enabled MoCA to become an art-making space and a very welcome refuge for Nina and many other youth in their teenage years. Nina found delight in identifying different ways to use art to create, express, shape, and influence. She even had her first experience as a board member, being on the MoCA Youth Board. I believe that this experience cemented her passion for community service. Today, we have the pleasure of meeting Nina Woodruff. Nina's a poet who loves visual arts and understands the value of providing a platform for children to express, create, and teach. Today, we're going to spend a little time talking about the connection between social responsibility, innovation, and creativity, Afrofuturism. Yeah, I have a lot to learn in that area, and what companies can do to ensure they're a part of it. Let's listen in. Nina, I am so thrilled and excited to have you here on the show.
As am I. Thank you so much, Ms. Shakur, for inviting me.
I love it. One of the reasons I invited you is I typically have individuals that are in the corporate sector, but I love your experience in both corporate and non-for-profit. So if you would be kind enough, would you just give us an overview of your story?
Yes, I will. I would say that my journey began years ago at MoCA as a young person who became an intern. And we kind of cultivated this very strong relationship of development, leadership development, youth development as a young person. And I think that gave me the grounding that I needed to become a leader later on in the corporate, in the tech industry specifically. I would say that journey has been riddled with all kinds of treasures, all kinds of trinkets, lots of moments where I was able to learn how to be a leader. My leadership journey began as a young person where I was tasked to be a curator, where I was tasked to be an administrator as a teenager in the very early days. And I think that it helped formulate how I saw leadership, It also helped to ground the numerous ways in which that I wanted to participate as a leader with other folks, with other young people, with my peers, and just how I engage. And then as I took my journey through college and then entering corporate America back in the late 90s, it sort of guided how I engage with others. It also guided and allowed me to feel confident and comfortable with asking for leadership roles. In my earlier part of the tech days, at 24, I took on a project where I deployed software across the country to 10,000 users. And that was when I was at Farmers Insurance. And, as a young professional, I was not afraid to ask for big projects. I was not afraid to lean in. I wasn't afraid to learn. I would say that not that I was before my time, but how I worked with others, my ability to navigate difficult conversations and difficult experiences has helped form who I am today. And then when I fast forward to being in the role that I am currently, all of my experiences, whether they be small tasks, small projects, or large scale projects, have helped, give me the skills that I need to work with tons of people, lots of people working on small projects and larger projects. And although I've only been in the role for 6 years, I feel like my entire journey has paved the way for how I experience my leadership today.
I love that. So many good nuggets. I heard communication. I heard the acquisition of an extremely diverse skill set. I heard early on courage. And let me tease you, in this day and age of quietly quitting and leaving companies without giving notice, 6 years is quite an admirable feat. But I imagine that if you say it that way, it doesn't seem like 6 years at all. So
No, it does not. I would agree.
that's a wonderful thing. Let me delve in a bit. In my story time, I've already talked about Mocha and my involvement there and how we met. So let's give the leaders a little bit of your vision and mission for the museum. Particularly, you've launched a futures school. Can you share with the audience what that is?
Absolutely. So I co-launched it with an Afrofuturist by the name of Dr. Lonnie Brooks because I wanted to bring foresight to young people. And so it's grounded by Afrofuturism. And so I'll give you a little sort of defined term on what Afrofuturism. It's a movement that combines African diaspora culture with science fiction and technology. It's also a way of looking at the future through a Black lens, imagining worlds where Black people from the diaspora are thriving and liberated and present. We also mix in or blend in a little bit of Indigenous futurism, which is a lens that sort of incorporates that Indigenous voice as well as perspective. And then we also blend in queer futurism. And so it's important for us to make sure that we are including those voices because most of our young people are from one of those three different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. And so our community future school is a place where young people are exposed to a myriad of careers, successful professional artists, as well as higher education institutions. We see ourselves as a group of practitioners that are sharing and imparting knowledge that young people can utilize to explore what the future might look like in 2045, and specifically what Oakland might look like in 2045. And they're exposed to world building. They actually get to scan, which basically allows them to look at, the future of X. What is the future of, let's say, social interactions? What is the future of health? And how is health equity a part of that future? And how can we make sure that health equity is a part of that future? And then they're also looking at what the future of work is. And so we have them scan, we have them look, and we have them research, and we have them look at the past, the present, and then as they're sort of building out these artifacts or prototypes of the future, they're using their research. They're using what they learned from the past and the present to build out these artifacts of the future. And then we also teach them how to exhibit their artwork or how to exhibit what they learn, their exposition of learning. That is all sort of built into the curricula for the entire year. And it happens over the course of an academic school year.
Thank you for that. It sounds really challenging. And when I hear futurism, I think of Wakanda. Am I being silly? But is that the concept of imagining?
Absolutely. That is, Wakanda is a version of a world where very positive things, preferred futures are sort of imagined. So yes, Wakanda. That's what we're building. We're encouraging our young people to look at the future and build these positive things in the future. And also, they're looking to solve for certain things, right? So it's not just a positive future that they're looking at or an optimistic future that they're looking at. They're building out a preferred future where everyone is thriving.
So are they looking at environmental issues or?
They're looking at water, they're looking at unhoused communities, they are looking at working conditions, they are looking at transportation. It's pretty open when you think about social interactions and or work. It's pretty wide, it's pretty open. They're even looking at war, which is interesting since we've had two pretty large wars recently. And the brilliant thing about these young people is that we don't choose the topic for them. We give them these very broad topics to sort of, or domains to look at, and they choose based on what's interesting to them or what they believe needs to be solved today.
What I love is the encouragement of innovation and creativity. As you know, I work for a software company, a SaaS solution, and each day our leaders encourage creativity and innovation. And how amazing would it be if we could build a community of youth that are coming prepared, going into college with that mindset? Tell me a little bit. As a board member, I know about your partnerships. So you have a lot of strong corporate sponsorship. What is the value proposition that you tell your corporate sponsors about the benefit of the museum and the future school?
Yeah, I mean, we are using the museum to showcase, different ways of envisioning the future. And our role is to share these disciplines along with careers in fields like biotech and others where young people may not necessarily have access to or may feel completely shut out because of the economic positions of their families. We want and need to help them make the connections and feel confident that they belong in the fields that typically exclude them. And so, beyond interviews, it's important to make the connections for them so they feel like they belong in those settings. It's important to expose them to those different settings. And many times our corporate partners allow for that to happen for our young people, that we are making or creating partnerships with strong corporations that believe that it's important that there's a bridge between their world and the urban setting.
That is so empowering. As an people practitioner, I love the emphasis on belonging. And if I weren't already an HR practitioner, I would think that the feeling of not belonging is no one holds a monopoly on that. No race holds a monopoly on that. Everyone wants a sense of belonging. But you and I both recognize that there are some populations that have been marginalized more so than others. And so having an organization that is supported by corporations, I think goes a long way. And kudos to all your corporate sponsors that recognize their role in healing and helping.
I'm sorry, I wanted to sort of highlight one specific partner that we've been, if I'm allowed to.
Absolutely, please.
Awesome, that we've been working with for over 20 years. Even before we created the Community Future School, we've partnered with corporations like Clorox Foundation, and they are investing in our organization. And they believe in our Community Future School where young people are exposed to these careers. I think that having a strong partnership like Clorox gives us, the ability to look at the future, right? It gives us the ability to look at 2045 when you have corporations that are committed to investing in urban settings. And I also want to point out that we're an arts organization, right? So they're not just committed to investing in urban settings, they're committed to investing in the arts. It's interesting because our young people, their way of thinking is very divergent, right? And it's something that corporations need. When you think about tech companies, who are they looking for? They're looking for divergent thinkers. They're looking for innovative and creative thinkers and people that are looking at solutions to solve for what we call wicked problems, which are these huge problems that take tons of think tanks to solve. And we are allowing and giving space for our young people to solve for those wicked problems.
I'm a big believer in allowing the space to solve the problems. So there's no mystery here. I've invited you in on the episode for June. June is quite an impactful month. Every month is impactful when you think of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But in particular, June has a unique intersectionality, if you will, with the commemoration of Juneteenth, as well as it being Pride Month. So I know we've talked a lot about innovation, creativity, but tell me a little bit if it even shows up at all in your work with the youth. Is there any intersections that you can draw with your arts and innovation work that would bring both of those communities together, or are you seeing differences?
No, I would say that, first of all, 90% of our children are Black, Indigenous, and children of color. And specifically in our Community Future School, we have a high number of queer children, non-binary children. Many of our artists are non-binary and or queer. And so, it's important that we showcase queer artists. It's important that we showcase Black as well as brown artists. And that's part of our teaching practice. It's part of our pedagogy that we include a variety of different artists into our work. So June is an interesting month for us because there's a lot of celebrations within our population because of who we serve. And not just who we serve, but who our teaching artists are. We have a high number of Black and brown teaching artists and queer artists, which makes it, a very proud month for many of us that are with MOCA. I'd also like to say that our young people are more flexible when it comes to looking at queerness, when it comes to looking at and being accepting of sort of divergent ways of being, non-binary ways of being. And so, June is very interesting for us.
Thank you for that. Corporate America still has a ways to go with its inclusion initiatives, but I've seen so much over the course of my career that I'm happy and I believe that we're moving in the right direction, particularly with initiatives like the Future School and the museum. I'd like to go back to you in particular. Leadership. Again, my audience is primarily leaders, anyone that leads humans, as well as people practitioners. Tell me a little bit about your leadership style and any challenges that you may deem are unique and different in the non-for-profit sector versus when you were in the tech space.
I would say that my leadership style is the same. I wouldn't say recently that they've described it as servant leadership, which I feel is more like a collaborative approach where most of the decision making is made in a team environment. I believe that it's critical for my teammates to feel heard and respected. I often refer to my teammates as partners. I refer to our leaders as partners. While we are sort of identifying many ways that we can serve the organization, it is not an easy approach because most people are told what vision to follow. They're told in most settings that it's more of a look and listen and do what I say versus encouraging them to develop their own vision. I believe in this sort of collaborative way of how do we get the most out of people? We get it by asking them for their input. We get it by asking them to be partners. And I model this way with the expectation that they are encouraged to manage similarly, meaning that anyone that reports to me, I'm expecting them to look at their staff as partners. It's critical, but it's also not typical. And some people struggle with it. They struggle with this leadership style that is asking for partners and not for direct reports. I would say that the challenge is finding the right staff with the knowledge, skills, and ability to manage their division. Professional development is a significant aspect of our organization. And I'm always looking for people that are self-directed, that can identify their own solutions and work in a team environment. And so those are the challenges that I have faced and I continue to face. We know that there's a talent war out there, right? We know that there are workforce development issues, but I'm always asking the staff, what do you believe you need support with from a professional development perspective? And obviously I'm giving feedback as well, but I need partners. And that is a struggle for people to see themselves as partners.
Yeah, it is. My April podcast talked all about radical empowerment, and it's scary. As you were talking, I thought about it. What if my boss told me I was her partner? I think that would make me a little nervous. So can you just dive just 1 minute into that? How do you achieve that with role clarity, ownership, and not, quite frankly, frightening employees into thinking, oh my gosh, this is too big of a chunk. My boss makes more than me. Let's just be real here. My boss makes more than me. How can my boss say that I'm her partner, right? How can one of your director development say that they're consider themselves your partner when they know that there is truly a hierarchy? Just tell me a little bit more about that, because that is provocative.
If we are hiring subject matter experts to execute within their domain, right? So let's say a development director, right? They are the subject matter experts. If I am hiring people that are smarter than I am in their domain, in their expertise, right? It doesn't mean that I don't know about their expertise, that I'm not educated, that I'm not well-versed in that domain. If I'm expected to hire people that are the smartest and the brightest in their field, then why would I not want them to be a partner? And so, oftentimes build KPIs together. Well, what is your vision? How do you see this happening? I understand that we still have to drive the strategic plan, right? That we still have a goal to get to. I want to know, how do they envision themselves getting to that goal? I do believe that the bar is the bar. And so if we are hiring experts, shouldn't we let experts do what they're supposed to do, which is live and breathe and be in their domain as experts? I mean, that's the big question, right? If we are not allowing experts to do their work, then we're kind of in the way. And if I'm leaning on an expert to give me their consultative approach to something, I have to allow that to be. And sometimes people are wrong. I have to allow them to make mistakes. And it's okay. And when we make mistakes, we'll get back to the drawing board and we'll figure it out together as a team. And yes, I do make more than everyone in the company. However, it's my job to hire experts. I do not want staff that I have to micromanage. If I have to micromanage staff, they're not subject matter experts. I don't know how else to lead. It's my way. And it works in most cases. In other cases, it doesn't. And it's okay. And it's okay that this is not the place for folks that don't want to be partners. I'm okay with that. What I will also state is that it's a journey. It's not something that you do overnight. You build a rapport. What do they say? Change happens at the speed of trust. So we're building trust. We're making alliances. We're making agreements and commitments, and we're doing it together.
Well, I appreciate the collaborative approach, and you sound like a lot of the CEOs I've supported in my career. I've heard it more than once that if I have to do your job, then why did I hire you? That's a common theme. I'm surprised, I must admit, even though I've known you for nearly a decade, that that's your style in the not-for-profit. So I'm grateful, and that is probably one of the attributes that's made the museum successful. As we close out, I'd love for you to leave us with what I like to call the big message. What do you want our listeners to walk away with, either about you or the museum?
I first want to share what my hopes and dreams are for the museum. So I'm looking toward a future where we support thousands of young people who are unafraid to participate as leaders, as CEOs, as politicians, while solving for the things like water shortages and famines and even conflict. What I want the listeners to walk away knowing is that our young people have solutions to big problems. And when we invest in them, They build agency and confidence to assert their voice, expertise, and in some cases, wisdom. Corporations need to invest in urban settings, as I believe our young people hold the key to unlocking all kinds of solutions that have yet to be vetted.
Nina, thank you. This has been a deviation from my typical conversation, but meaningful and heartfelt nonetheless. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I appreciate being here.
Thanks for tuning into Working Forward. If you like what you hear, please share it with others and make sure you're following the show to not miss an episode. We are available anywhere you get your audio. See you next time.